Hey everybody, John Wolpert here with the gang that are of our illustrious panelists here on the Baseline Protocol office hours we do every week. It's good to see everybody here. I'm gonna guess that we're gonna have a real small crowd today. I think after COVID, everybody is taking or at least in the U.S., is taking the July 4th holiday really seriously. So which makes us a bunch of knuckleheads. We should be all on a beach somewhere, getting exposed to the D variant or whatever, the Delta variant. That's the vitamin D variant. Yeah, that would be. Yeah, no, that's what I was. Hopefully, not a too off color joke there. Yeah, so it's good to see you guys. Lots. There's news and then there's news. So let's just get right to it. The EEA, the Ethereum Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, which has been an organization that has been around since 2015, 2016, really was at the dawn of the how do we use blockchain in business conversation, set up by a bunch of companies, including Banco Santander and Consensus and others. They have announced that with the Oasis, the Ethereum Oasis organization, or rather Oasis Open, which is the venerable standards body that is the housing unit for the Baseline Protocol community, is now they have merged the operation into a new what is now called has gone from Oasis or Ethereum Oasis Open Project to EEA Open Projects. They've done a deal between, and we will have Dan Burnett from the EEA, the chair of the EEA, and Guy Martin, the managing director of Oasis, on the show next week. They're both tied up and can't do it today, but they will come on and explain the whole thing next week. I'm hearing from Nick that we're getting audio snapping and popping on YouTube. I think I know what that's about, and I'll fix that right now. So everybody stand by, and we'll be right back. All right, we should be back. Can somebody double check?
Say something.
Okay, so so we're talking again, and is there any popping? No popping. Somebody else talk. Can we hear everybody? Okay.
It looks good, John.
All right. Good old OBS. I think now that we're maturing, maybe for V1, I'll upgrade the broadcast system here in the home office. But yeah, thanks Francis for telling us that. Appreciate it. Yeah, it seems like whenever we load up YouTube, and if I don't do it exactly right, OBS and then I throw up OBS to broadcast to YouTube, sometimes it gets a little tricky. But yeah, so where were we? We're talking about EEA and now the new Ethereum or Enterprise Ethereum Alliance Open Projects program, and Baseline, the Baseline Protocol organization, is part of that. So now we are under sort of this new moniker where the EEA and Oasis are working together hand in glove to shepherd our way into the enterprise and run standards and open source. The net of this, I mean, the real simple story behind this is that the EEA is a industry standards body, membership driven, which means that there are a bunch of companies that pay to be members to be part of that body, and they do a bunch of industry standards stuff. The Oasis Open organization that's behind SGML and MQTT and AMQP and all these open standards that often find their way into IEEE or ISO or what have you. Oasis has a special property of being able to involve anyone. So, contributors to the baseline program, there's dozens and dozens of them. And some of them come from companies or are individuals that are not paying members of anything at all. But Oasis has a way of making sure that we protect, intellectual property and make sure that people that are stealing somebody else's stuff doesn't get into any of the work and that sort of thing. But you don't have to be a member. You could just be a person. You could be a company that's not paying a paying member, but you can be involved in the work. And so EEA and Oasis together allow you to be a member, where membership is something that's desired for industry decision making. And you can also just be a non-member and contribute to the open standards and open source work. And I'd say probably the most, one of the most advanced things is the convergence of open source work, which we all have been living for a number of years, and open standards work into the same operation. So Baseline is really on the cutting edge of that, in that we have a standards body, and the people in the standards team are also on the maintainers team. And a lot of the maintainers are writing standards. There's an old phrase in computer science, or at least in engineering, code talks and talk walks. But when you're trying to get a whole industry, when you're trying to get everybody on the same page about something like baselining, code talks, but you better have the words behind it, and everybody better be singing off the same hymnal, not to mix metaphors. So that's EEA. The EEA Open Projects is now live, and I'll try to let's get the I'll pull up the announcement and post it. So that announcement came out yesterday. And Nick, do you have a, oops. Yeah, there it is. There was a nice article about it in Cointelegraph by our one of our favorite reporters, Rachel Wolfson. And here is, put this in the live stream. So you've got it. Right. We've got Mohan, we've got Lucas, we've got Tyler, we've got Ryan, and Boris, Jack from Provide, Mark Haddle, as always. I think, Mark, I think you get a prize for being most faithful. And I think you definitely get the attendance award for guy not on payroll who consistently supports the community. So we love you for that, man. We really do. Yeah. What do we got to talk about today beyond the, or does anybody have any questions about the EA thing?
I think it's I think it's important and interesting though that, I mean, John, coming from the EA myself, that's something that we had some understanding that was transpiring throughout some hard work from Dan and the great organization, but and so really excited about where it's now brought us to. And I do think it's exemplary of where the greater Ethereum ecosystem is moving towards, and seeing, just as you had mentioned, from not only the open source work, but from looking deeper into utilizing public networks and the Ethereum public mainnet, as we have embarked on this kind of journey together in doing so. So really excited about seeing that and moving in that direction.
Hey, Jack, real quick, while we've got you, there is a question on the live chat that says, what would be the determining factor for a company to be baselined using the Provide tech stack or not using the tech stack? What are the advantages and disadvantages? I tried to answer it in chat, but I thought it would be a good opportunity for you to
yeah, the determining factor. Hey, I mean, I think it's often, as we look, as we know, it's kind of use case specific. And so as soon as we're able to kind of dissect what that use case and the actual workflow is a little bit more in depth, we can quickly see where we're able to effectively baseline and synchronize amongst that process. So, as kind of throughout a number of these opportunities, it's like, it's the first time we're taking them in stride and we're learning more deeply about those workflows. And then we're like, okay, we can apply it here. This is how we're actually going to effectively do it. And we continue to see it. So, I challenge.
Yeah, so no matter what the process is, though, once you identify those areas to baseline, you need the components to do so, right? You need the messaging and the key management and the clients and all of that. And Provide's done a good job of bringing the choice of components, bringing them together with their own glue via shuttle and other technologies, in delivering the first commercial baseline protocol platform, right?
That's very well said, Nick. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's certainly what we've been striving for throughout this, and where we feel that we're in well positioned to be able to kind of facilitate those type of use cases.
Yeah, one of the advantages.
Good.
Sorry, one of the advantages for dev teams is ultimately time to market, or time to completion for their project. You can certainly use other components, but then you have to do the testing, the integration yourself, and the maintenance yourself. Whereas using an integrated stack like that, provided by Provide, we got to work on the name there, really makes things easier. And again, you're standing on shoulders of people that have been successful. So I'll stop.
Yeah, one of the primary things that we've been focused on throughout the whole building of the platform has for it to been just really seamless in using, production grade, having confidence in that, and like I said, just the seamless in the utilization of the actual platform. So that's something that we're focused on.
My short answer for why people should use Provide is simply Lucas. I mean, if you have a chance to buy Lucas code, you're going to want Lucas code because it's the best code. It's Lucas code. So yeah, I mean, all joking aside, it's probably not to embarrass you, Lucas, but Lucas was on the original EY consensus Microsoft team when we were coming up with the stuff, and now he's over at Provide and somehow survived the hit that was probably placed on him by EY when he left.
At least so far.
I tell you what,
So far, yeah.
You come to work for me, Lucas, and you won't survive leaving because
You're always too kind, John.
I know
even
taxi
with the death
drivers.
threats.
Yeah. No, I think I imagine it would be pretty hard to lose you. I think that the work is interesting, and I have to say, I was just telling the project governance board this today. I used to be a little conflicted about this, that, I want, all the companies contributing equally to the standard and to the code base and building lots of implementations. But, if you think about it, Sun was behind Java. Linus did a lot with Linux. There's still a small number of people that are behind, usually behind these major projects. And then you get a lot of input from others. And for example, Bishwashri Dey, who we're going to talk to in a second about her experience with trying to implement this stuff. I think it's okay. And the fact that Provide and Unibright bet the farm on this, even though it came from other companies like EY, like Consensus and others, there's nothing wrong with that, And if that said, I'm really hopeful that that your success starts to breed lots of other entrants, because a single platform standard is a pretty weak standard. What you want is everybody racing to the top saying, "Oh, my implementation is better for that standard. We're more compliant than you are." That should be in your marketing, right? Which means that there needs to be a plurality. But right now, we're maturing and we're young, and I don't have any other places to point to. But if you want the, as Kyle calls it, the easy button. So I think the answer to the question, Nick, that you were asking, one of them is, if you're a systems level developer that really likes to build it from scratch out of whole cloth yourself, you've got what you need. Go for it. But if you don't want it, if you want to just blow past that and get into application development, then you're going to need something like a Provide stack and other stuff. So, so good on you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Bishwashri, you have had some experience now trying to build a new project. You're one of the several people that have been given a grant to build things and do R&D on the baseline protocol. And I noted your questions about things that that we need to that you would need to see to have made your experience figuring this stuff out better. And I thought today would be a good time to discuss that. Is that okay with you? Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
are we losing? Oh, yep, you're there. Okay, cool. So I'm going to just start posting some of the points that you made. You made 8 really solid points, and maybe we can talk about them. I'll put them on the live stream one at a time. So the first one was the schema for the messaging, the message that would be, one of the things you would have liked to have seen would have been better information about the schema for the message that would be sent and received on the baseline stack. What items need to be present in the message, i.e. like primary key, column name, etc. Where did you get stuck on that? And maybe you can tell us about it.
So whatever changes I'm making on my record, or any changes I'm making in the data of my record, that needs to get reflected on with the counterparty. That's correct, right?
Right.
So to figure out what portion exactly of the record was changed, to identify that, which column was changed for which of the record. So what all basic items such as the primary key or the column name is required to be sent over to the other party.
So that's an interesting point, because the way that I see it, I did read the email this morning, and I thought about it for a bit. And the way that I see it, this reconciliation, this checks to ensure that the correct thing has been changed, is automatic. Meaning, one of the features of baseline is knowing that you don't really have to know all of the details of what has changed where to know that the change has happened correctly. So that missing is really more of a feature than a bug, in my opinion. But maybe I'm misunderstanding.
So maybe the where we have to improve is on the tools and on the docs, and making that clear, and it's funny that my biggest frustration with most projects docs isn't what's documented, it's what they just didn't document. Right? It's like I'm thinking that this can be done, and I'm trying to figure out why I can't do it, and because the community or the company that's putting out the software didn't, they just didn't comment on it, and in some companies' cases they suppress information about that at all because they don't want you doing it. So it's very frustrating sometimes. So we should probably take that on board and say, okay, well, how would we make sure people get that? Does that help, Vishwashri?
Yeah, that does help. So there was another follow-up question regarding that, was that if it is automatic, then at least some understanding of how that entire process has been automatized. So
I agree.
Because
that is definitely something that is missing, and something that we're working on, giving a better view of how this reconciliation happens. Because and as your email does state, I think we do get a bit lost on zero knowledge explanations when it comes to the documentation of how that reconciliation happens. There's a very good reason for that, and the reason for that is that the reconciliation happens through zero knowledge proofs, but we could try and lay down a bit of a more simplistic version of how the zero knowledge proofs work without having to delve into the actual technicals of it. I do think that would be quite useful.
Yeah, that would be very helpful, because what is happening is that I'm getting an inbound message from the baseline stack, and now I'm a little lost on how, because I have to reflect that the message that I've received on my Excel spreadsheet, and because I don't understand how automatically the data is getting mapped, I'm not able to figure out on which of the cell or which of the records the message I have received needs to be reflected on. Or which portion of the Excel sheet do I need to change to correctly reflect the inbound message that I have received from the baseline stack.
Can I ask a question here to Debashri and Lucas? Is this an issue of marshalling and unmarshalling of data, basically, where you have a data model and you want to know how to marshal and send it off, or when you get a piece of data, how do I unmarshal? What's the so the meta model that I need to use to unmarshal that object? Is that what we're talking about?
I think we're talking more of a process flow issue here of understanding exactly how information gets exchanged and where information gets modified at different places in the flow of the baseline process. That being said, I think that we announced last week. Actually, let me defer to Jack there, because I don't want to mess anything up.
While you guys are probably chatting behind the scenes to see what you can say, we should probably mention that Bishwashri is building a project that baselines Excel spreadsheets with other systems of record like SAP and such. So pretty interesting, right? A similar project was done some time ago around the Google Sheets. Bishwashri is doing something similar with Excel. And I love this, right? I could even use an Excel spreadsheet in baseline, right? So if I was using an Excel spreadsheet for my accounts receivable system in a small company, I could still participate in baselining, which is kind of cool. And just to set the context, I just realized that we didn't tell people what Bishwashri's project was. So that's why these questions are important.
Yeah, there's been a lot of good work going there. I know from a documentation perspective that Dave and Kyle and the team have been putting a lot into that. And so that's going to be being updated as we progress here. We certainly welcome feedback from the community that's looking to get more involved relative to Excel baselining of it for contributed efforts to that. And yeah, we're working to synthesize a lot of the work that's been done with Bishwashri, the Envision team, and to update that documentation very soon here.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question was, Bishwashri, you wrote that we need an understanding of how the data, that we're sending will be mapped with the data of the counterparty. I guess that's what we were just discussing.
Yeah.
And then the third question was, what API of the baseline stack and the add-in needs to call? What are the parameters, responses, and errors of these APIs? What are the endpoints where I need to send these API calls to? So how would one just starting out, and we can have more conversations about this. This is the point of this meeting. This weekly call is all about. And we can have additional ones like this where we discuss this stuff. How can we make that more obvious? Where did you, Bishwashri, where did you find yourself confused about that? Like what part of the development process? Where were you?
So I had first mapped out what outbound message I need to send to the baseline stack. And I was working with Kyle on this. So he had taught me how to run the baseline stack locally. But now I'm able to send my message to the baseline stack, but it is sending back some errors to me. And because I do not know what all the exact specification of those APIs, I'm not able to figure out why that error is occurring.
Any thoughts, guys? I think that one and the next one are a lot about tools, right? So you also asked for a simplified view on how messages are sent and received on the stack, outbound, inbound. Too many details on the ZK circuits are making it a little confusing, is what you said. But By the way, these are all really good inputs and requirement sort of basis for some requirements in our V1 work, which we're really starting to turbocharge on that. I think especially after the holiday here, we're having a big summit where we're live in person at the end of the month, where we're going to start to strategize, or not start, but finish strategizing and locking in and starting to get the work done for the V1 production grade spec. So that'll be a lot of these questions are going to go straight into that. Like, how do we make this easier for developers? How do we make that easier for developers? Any thoughts there, Lucas?
Sorry, one sec.
Yep.
No thoughts. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I think that it's going to be good to have all the documentation, all of the processes ready to get that V1 out. Excited for it. I think that it's a huge milestone, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think, and tools that do make it simpler to visualize some of these, the back and forth, the messages, and deal with the ZK circuits when they're involved is going to be helpful. I know that Sam Stokes, who's can't be with us today, he's catching a fish, and I'm pretty jealous of it. Out there fly fishing. I haven't fly fished in quite a while, but I was like, whoa, I want to go with you. But Sam has been doing some really interesting work on a visualizer and a dashboard. So
Yeah, just to add in a little bit there, John, just on the documentation piece, I know the team from our side is working hard. It's a goal of ours just to have educational resources that are there that kind of enable the developer ecosystem in a self-sufficient way. And so we feel that we're getting much closer to that. There's been a lot of work just from an overall documentation perspective. I think we're really getting much closer to that within like the next month or so, in which we go live with some things.
Yeah, I'm sure that I think I certainly was like this when I was writing anything. It's very hard to do what we like to do in Agile, right? Which is, especially in open source Agile, which is put things into a little tiny box. Say I'm going to build this little tiny thing. I'm going to do a pull request on that. People are going to review it, and it's going to be fast and small. And then we're going to do another one. We're going to iterate little baby steps, fast baby steps over and over again. That's the ideal thing. But a lot of creative people, creative developers, that's really hard for them, right? They want to, they'll be up all night for 7 nights in a row. And they will come out with this thing out of, the head of Zeus, that then this monstrosity that people have to kind of digest. And so there's always this tug of war between, I want to get it done, but my mind isn't working in these little pieces. I want to do a big thing, and I'm going to dump it on the community, and then the community is going to have to gag it down and figure out how to deal with it. That's really a trick, right? Because I know you guys are working a lot on this internally, and the challenge is to how do we get lots of eyeballs on it? As they say, in open source, all with enough eyeballs, all bugs are trivial.
And I think in the efforts, one thing I know that Kyle's always been heavily focused on is building out the architecture in the best kind of future state sustainable way. Like, what is going to be ultimately the best for the actual platform itself? So whatever that kind of takes are the level of investment efforts that we're willing to make, even if that's foregoing some of the immediate opportunity at hand to build something that's much bigger and going to be that much more important to what we're ultimately building.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, the trick being, there's folks that I'm sure would love to help contribute, and they need little bite-sized pieces, right? But we sold.
Doors open. Doors open. We're welcoming anyone that wants to come in and work to, whether it be based on a different use case or whether it be seeking to better understand how that they can apply it within their own platform.
But you guys haven't done pull requests on V1, right? You're doing that internally, and then you're going to open source it later, right?
That's correct. Yeah, the core services, that'd be accurate. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We appreciate that. That's a lot of work. But yeah, I mean, I definitely encourage you to, instead of putting out things in big chunks, open source little pieces of it.
Mm-hmm.
That way, because, everybody's a volunteer, and it's a lot easier to evaluate a little piece than a big piece. But that, like I said, as I, said it earlier, that's easier said than done. So we'll take it however we get it. So what some other, so Vishwashri had some other questions, like how do we set up, how does one set up the baseline stack locally and interact with it? What commands, so Vishwashri, you want to talk more about that? Like, where did you get stuck there?
Yeah. So I did not really get stuck, but I think as a suggestion, I would like you guys to put it in the documents, because Kyle had to really walk me through each of the steps and tell me what commands I needed to use. It took like more than an hour for us to set it up.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
I hope did you tape that session? We could just like take that session and turn it into enablement content.
We did not think of that. We were just like chatting, and he walked me through it.
Well, that sounds like a real opportunity that we could get behind is to go through. Maybe we should stage that again, Vishwashri, with you and somebody, maybe Kyle, somebody else, and go through, kind of reenact that, and then get it down on paper, and create some, maybe some videos, some materials that make that easier.
Actually, John, I mean, I'm interested in actually getting this up locally and trying it out. It's
well, just spend an hour with Kyle and you're good. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I might do that. So, Vishwashri, if you can, if you don't mind, I mean, I'd be interested in joining a session, perhaps with Kyle and you, if you want to go through it again.
Hey, what, Vishwashri, do you have it down now? Could you teach Mohan, and could you tape it?
I know the commands after it has been set up, but the basic setup, I just, because I just did it once, I'm not like, I don't know how to do it by myself.
I do.
Just to give you,
maybe Vishwashri, Lucas, and Mohan, you guys could get together.
I love it.
I would buy popcorn to that event, so that would be great.
Yeah, hit me up. I mean,
provide some context. We had planned to bring forth Kyle and Vishwashri to demo it here in early July on the baseline office hours. Sweet. That was our intention. Yeah, we were working through some things. We were trying to actually consider doing it this week, but kind of targeting very early July. But I'll firm it up with Kyle, and we can clarify that so that we can have.
Have you guys already created some content around that, the learning from the teaching process? Like, to make it easy to teach, I mean, it'd be great, like on the docs, right? Here's how you set it up, right?
Yeah,
that sort of.
Yeah, that's.
Yes.
Go ahead, Lucas. Sorry.
Oh no, please. I definitely interrupted you. Yeah.
No, I was going to say that's part of the documentation being made right now. David and the team, Gooder team, are putting that together. So
sweet. All right.
But Mon, if you want, hit me up on Slack. I'll be more than happy to walk you through that. I do have some time, either late this evening. I don't know what time zone you're at, or
I'm in New York City. Where are you based?
London, but
no problem. So
in terms of hours, yep, tonight is perfect.
Okay.
Tonight is perfect. I am working. I am working pretty much Eastern time, so whenever it's good for you.
Yeah, let me just make sure I've got the environment set up. So if you
pulling
just
in
send me,
Lucas at 4 a.m. his time in the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, my background is, once upon a time, I built a distributed objects platform where we had to do object, marshaling and unmarshaling. So those, so I'm familiar with a lot of the underlying, basically early versions of JSON, marshaling type of thing. So, for me, we are looking at using baseline, and nobody in my organization knows anything about it. I mean, I know a little bit about it, but I just want to get myself familiar with it. And I think I like to work in the weeds because that's how I build instinct. So I'd love this opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me say something
We'll
about
have a ton
that.
of fun.
I want to say something about that. About I think we were just on a call about this. I also want to turn to the camera and say, look, we have 5 years of history that we have to break through on this mistaken notion that blockchains are databases. I just got an email from a really supportive aerospace organization that wants to baseline. They've got 10 or 20 companies, organizations, government entities, and they're looking at different things. They've been playing with Corda and some other stuff, and they're playing with Hyperledger, and a lot of that's apparently this kind of cratering, and they're like, this is the perfect time to baseline. But and then he hits me with this, but we're a little nervous about putting data on the public blockchain. At which point my head exploded because I'm like, what do we need to do to stop people thinking about public or private blockchains as places to put their internal corporate or private data? Don't do that. I want to go on a campaign. I want to go on a you're a stupid, don't be stupid campaign where we just start shaming people who are putting up this front against the use of blockchain and in particular public blockchain, where you need supremely good tamper resistance for your data, which is not on a blockchain, right? And I think in a way what we need to be talking about is baseline really isn't a platform, right? We've talked about this many times for years. It's not a platform. It's a design technique. And in a way, I think it's a way of saying, hey, we're going to use the set of tools to companies need a baseline with other companies. They need to establish baselines with other companies, whether that's tokenization under zero knowledge or whether that's putting hashes on a blockchain the way we do or anything. I think in the future, if we've done our job well, all of that just kind of falls under the moniker of baselining, right? Whatever techniques allow you to establish a common frame of reference with your counterparties, have your respective data sets, and know that they're in a state of consistency and that they have workflow integrity, even though you all have different companies with different systems. That's baselining, right? The minute you say public or private blockchain, people get stupid. So let's stop calling it that. Let's just say, hey, we need verified multi-party workflows. We have a set of tools for that. There, and one of those tools is this machine that we've, the advent of which came a few years ago, where you have a big, something that's really always on, can't be tampered with, and can confer tamper resistance on your data. And I don't know what we need to do. I think we need to start like showing up at the IEEE meetings down at the Ramada near the airport and stuff like that. It's not the fancy conferences, right? The IT conferences, right? It's the SIGC conference or these kinds of say, hey, look, as IT people, we have a toolkit. It is not scary. Used properly, it's perfectly fine. Shut up. That's kind of where I want to go, because I'm sick of having this conversation about, oh my God, we can't do that because we're putting data on the blockchain. I'm like, no, you're not. And by the way, if you're worried about that, don't put it on a private blockchain either. It's a big giant threat surface.
Use the right tool for the right job.
All right. Breathe.
John, can we just one step the discussion prior to that? I'm sorry, I think I missed a part of it. But Vishwashri, and I just wanted to confirm what you are doing with Kyle and Provide. You're setting up basically the Provide stack to basically with the block with the base for baselining. Is my understanding correct?
Provide Stack is right now the leader in a commercial offering that implements the baseline pattern. Yeah.
Okay.
If you look at the GitHub repository, there are BRIs, baseline.
Oh yeah. we did,
Provide stack is- Yeah, it's good.
no, we did set up for our grant. We worked with Sam, so we were able to run basically his code and basically the stack or like the testing environment that he created with no issues. So and now I'm just saying to myself, should we also maybe participate in this and probably more? And we have reviewed prior to that. We reviewed the provide stack and the networking, the modules that get involved. I can't remember if we tried setting it up. Maybe we did. I'm not sure.
Let's have a follow-up course.
Yeah.
We'd love to help you set that up. I mean, again, we're working at baseline Excel. This is going to be applicable to pretty much most organizations.
Oh no.
I mean, not even.
Yeah.
You're the ones that use Excel.
No, I totally understand.
For those that don't,
just,
we'll use Google Sheets.
It just, I hate if you'll be sending up multiple sessions, because if we could follow Lucas, I would like to set it up ourselves, kind of basically follow him step by step and set it up in our environment as he goes, not just kind of, I hate doing it. I don't think, in a way, it's a waste doing a demo and not following it. Because it's nice when somebody, you can follow them, set it up in our environment and run it then. That's why I'm bringing this up. Yeah.
So Boris, you bring up a really crucial point. On this the chat, there was a side conversation about this, a little bit upstream from right now, where we were talking about, do you have to use provide or not? So it's kind of like saying 4 out of 5 dentists prefer provide. There's nothing wrong with using other things. That's the point of a standard, right? You shouldn't have to buy your wall outlet from a single provider or vendor in order to get 3 prongs and 120 volts, right? The standard says anybody that complies with the standard is going to be okay, right? That's the idea. So I'm glad that you were able to use Sam's BRI2 stack, and so if you were not a systems level person, you might use provide because it's kind of done the work for you. You guys being systems level people could say, okay, yeah, I can use some of this stuff from BRI2 and from Sam's work. And then, but you guys know what you're doing, and you had to probably roll a lot of your own stuff. And having done that, it should interop with anything that somebody built on provide. And if it doesn't, that's a problem.
No,
right?
Actually, that's the reason I brought it up, because we are completing the circuit, and I wanted to see if we could run it basically in both environments.
Yeah, that'd be quite interesting.
That's actually that's why I brought this up.
It's just glad you did. That's huge.
Yeah, that's the reason. I mean, first of all, basically we could run it in one, but then we could try running it in multiple environments. What
week could we do a whole show on just that? Could we feature you in a few weeks or some number of weeks?
Let's first take the first step that we discussed earlier, because we went through a few iterations with the circuit, and we learned quite a bit that the first one we built was useless because we could have just hashed it. And Sam said, why are you building the? Sam kind of pointed out to us, guys, you could have just hashed it. You don't need a zero knowledge proof here. So we redid it, and now I think we're much closer to what it should be. But what we learned that there are many different solutions to be, obviously, just like in any coding, but with the zero knowledge proofs, like we're bidding on a bond, and we're saying, I mean, there could be multiple solutions, obviously.
Let me put this to Lucas. Lucas was really one of the biggest champions of the zero knowledge circuit approach in the early days. And there was an argument way back in 2019. Like, why do you need this? You can do EDDS or ECDSA, you can do digital signatures. Why do you need, you can manually sort of figure out that you're in a state of consistency if you really want to be. Why do we need all this extra stuff? And the answer is, if you just got one record and you know the other person, and you are happy to manually set that channel up and exchange signatures and yeah, you don't need any of this stuff, right? If it's just a single step.
And that person's going to be the same forever.
Right. Right. And you've hardwired that, right? It's manual. But when you get into multiple steps and you get into, so Sam is really focused right now, I know, because he works with me on this consistency. step, right? Is I've got a record, you've got a record. We need to be sure it's the same record. But Lucas, let me put it to you. Can you explain? Can you take a shot at what's your simplest explanation for somebody who's sort of semi-technical, kind of biz tech, on why and when you would want to have to go full zero knowledge circuit on a baseline workflow?
Yeah, sure. I can give that a shot. It's been a while since I last explained this, though.
Well, you had to explain it like 15 times to all of us by 2019, what I recall.
I know. I remember too, John. So the main reason where you would want a baseline implemented is when you have several work steps, or you have several steps in which each step depends on the previous one.
And some correctness about the step, data from step to step, right?
Yeah, of course. So the main thing that that zero knowledge proofs provide in this context is a term that I've been trying to get coined, that I've tried to coin for a while now, but I keep getting ignored. It's both entanglement and correctness by design, meaning you can specify a set of rules by which your process or your business workflow has to abide, and you can ensure that at each step of the process, those rules are going to be followed, and the counterparty can be sure that those rules are being followed too. And within those parameters, mistakes can still happen, but you can ensure that the chances for a mistake to actually occur are a lot lower. So for example, in a master service agreement, you know that you cannot go over or under. And if you do,
over and under, like a price or a volume.
Yeah, over and under, over or under the price limit for a given set of units. And if you do, the system will just straight up reject your.
But you could write that in code, right? You could write that in your ERP system to say, I only go up to this level, and then, right? You don't have to have a zero knowledge circuit. Why would you need to go through that extra complexity?
You would have to go through that extra complexity because basically what this allows you to do is you depend on the previous step that you have notarized. You can use the previous hash in the next step
as an input,
even though as an input for the next step, which allows you to have this general consistency throughout the system, depending on information that is stored directly on the blockchain. So if that was just a hash, on chain, you would have to have your own system of record on your.
Why not just share a Lambda function?
A Lambda function.
I'm asking questions. I'm asking questions. I'm already sold, so I'm just kind of trying to prompt for some why not? So if you and I need to agree that the price on step number 2 is in accordance with the business logic from an agreement, right? We didn't go over a price X. Why not just share some some business logic that says, we won't go over that price? Why do we need under zero knowledge rather than just shared code? Like I could just drop you a container full of business logic and run it.
You could, but the beauty with this is that you can just set it up once and you can reutilize it for any business process that you want with any given set of companies. You don't have to establish this trusted environment with every new company. You can just use pretty much the exact same operational code that you use with company A as well as with company C. You can change the rules by which you operate, but you don't have to change the concept of the trusted environment.
And then, so
because
for example,
you're depending on a blockchain.
And then you also want, these are especially good in cases where you want to hide the actual logic, right? So that there's nothing on chain that indicates what that logic is, right?
Exactly.
So
And those logics are defined in the circuits.
So I want to prove
So-
to an auditor like Ernst & Young or to a regulator that we didn't go over the usury rate for the state of Wyoming when we're lending some money to somebody. But I don't want all that out in the open, but I want to just be able to say to the regulator, yep, we didn't go over it. That's all you need to know. Right.
Exactly.
Without exposing
So-
all the data.
So I think what it comes down to is that you can save these hashes that you can later on use for further steps in the process, and at the same time you're ensuring that you can prove what this allows you to do as a short summary is keep the hashes as inputs for further calculations down the line through this idea of entanglement, which basically means use a previous output as an input for another function. And you can prove that this hash of hash, if you will, contains a specific portion
Of the logic, right.
Yeah.
So you can
contains a specific
trace the
portion
lineage
logic.
of the 15th work step all the way back to the very first
Correct.
baseline work step, right? And
Correct.
and not have to worry about breaking those rules as long as you wrote it right.
Yeah.
A lot of complexity there, a lot of tools to come to make that easy for people. I think that's going to be right now. I think most of the things we're seeing are just 1 or 2 step workflows, right? But as we get going, I think that'll be interesting. So thanks for that,
John?
Lucas. Yeah.
John, can I ask you a question? When you were talking about why not just use Lambda function, would one say that you may not have all the information to call the Lambda function at any given stage? And so, in a multi-stage process, that your best bet is to actually just depend on what the previous state is to kind of make your decision and really not look to sort of calling a Lambda function, but has to have much more visibility in the sequence of steps that have been executed. Would that be a fair argument here?
Yeah, and in fact, you can use a Lambda function, and you could baseline the Lambda function, right? So that you're sure that somebody didn't fool around with that Lambda function, from time X to time Y. But
So you call the Lambda function with no awareness of what the parameters are, but you know that but the Lambda function itself is kind of hashed.
seems to me that would be a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's great. Boy, this has been a good, we're 2 minutes from the top of the hour. I think we can stop. This was a lot more content packed day than I expected for a slow week during the U.S. holiday. But as always, love to see you all. Bishwashri and all of our friends in India, please be safe. And we're still thinking of you all. And we're so glad that we have now this new chapter of the Baseline community operating there. And there's some pretty, as I've said multiple times, there's some pretty big companies in the solution space that I think would probably have profited from would profit from listening to today's call, because it's all about enablement. Lots of big solutions companies now starting to say, okay, how can I apply this stuff to my clients? Sorry,
John?
Yeah?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up one point, what Lucas said, which I think like the zero knowledge proofs and the logic that goes into it in the process, quite a bit of it depends on what are you trying to hide, or what are you trying to not to show to. Quite a bit of it depends on the business logic that you're trying to implement. I mean, at least that's what I've learned, because workflow is the way Lucas described it. It sounds like workflow must be part of the zero knowledge proof, and I can see scenarios where it's just basically, if you have multiple bidders and you don't want like any of them to know who has been accepted.
You
That
don't
might
you
be
don't
ju-
even want any of them to know that the others are
Exactly.
bidding,
Exactly.
but you
That-
also need to prove that they all got the same RFP.
Yes, the same
Yes.
LFP and the response and the decisions that are being made by the initiator, by the party that is initiating the bids. I mean, the way they make a decision, that could be their thing. They might not even accept the best bid because
Yeah.
of like many different reasons.
This-
On their side, they'll say there was a counterparty risk or there is something out there that I don't want to deal with this counterparty.
In the middle
And-
of the original EY project back in
Right.
2
Right.
summers ago, we had 2 cases. We went with the case that you see in the Radish 34 project that we've that's not been deprecated, but it was the original demo of baselining, right? But and in that one, we the idea, and this was Paul Brody's idea, and I think it was a good one, was proving that that you could sequence a series of purchase orders and make sure that no 2 purchase orders calculated against the same rate, right? That's a real problem in supply chain and in purchasing and reconciliation. So that we went with that one, but the other one was a demonstration of what I'll call compartmentalization, right? Which is step 1 involves 1 company to 5, like an RFP, right? I'm NASA. I want to be able to prove to the government that I gave the same RFP to all these different companies. Step 2 is 1-to-1, right? Each of those 5 companies bids on that RFP, right? And then steps subsequent to that can be larger groups and smaller groups, and larger groups and smaller groups. Each step being perfectly compartmentalized, yet having integrity from step to step, right? So that, so in the second step, during the bid process, the counterparties don't know about each other. Where if you'd done that on, say, a fabric channel, you know, if I've got a node, I'm gonna see activity. I'm gonna know other people are bidding, right? I might, it might be encrypted. I might not know the details, but I know I know something I should know. In this case, nobody knows a thing, and yet we all know because of the proofs that that we all adhered to the RFP.
Right. Yep.
So that's this kind of accordion-sized scoping of who gets to know what at each step in the workflow is, I think, one of the most exciting things about baseline.
And that is something that that we're actively working on. We have the ability now to when we generate a message, or in this case, an RFP, propagating that to the entire work group. Everyone in the work group would get their own message saying, hey, this is the RFP, and they can send it back. And once we have chosen once we have accepted a bid, we're working on the ability to direct those messages to a specific member in a work group without the knowledge of the other members. And the only requirement for that is that they don't rely on a centralized NATS node. As long as they're running their own, we'll be able to direct that message directly at them without knowledge of, without informing the rest of the work group about the fact that they didn't get the bid, and we can compartmentalize that process directly with them. So that is something that, I don't want to say currently possible, but definitely in the works and getting close.
And we actually, to some extent, I think we already proved that out with Fraunhofer IPK in a previous demo, or in a previous proof of concept that we had done with them, because we were doing automated supply chain operations with them, in which a robotics process would go down, and that would kick off an RFP for the remediation of the fix of that particular piece. And I'm quite confident that we had gotten to like a point of completion on that POC.
Right on. Well, gosh, we've gone overtime.
Okay.
Again, really good session. Thanks everybody. Thanks, Boris. Let's set
Thank
that session up. Would love to watch, have you take us through those two, like having a provide stack and a non-provide stack interrupting. That would be really nice to see. Bishwashri, keep working. I'd love to do it when you're ready to demo your Excel project. Would love to see it. And until next time, we'll see you all. Keep on baselining.
Thank you.